They are the Beatles. And this is their story. A fateful meeting between two music-loving teenagers. In 1957 is where it all began. 16-year-old rhythm guitarist Lennon was performing with the Quarrymen at a church fete in Woolton, Liverpool, when the band's bass player introduced Lennon to then 15-year-old McCartney, who would join in on a couple of numbers that night and soon would be offered a permanent spot in the Quarrymen. Harrison joined the Quarrymen as lead guitarist at age 15. Influenced by rockabilly, his guitar licks would help shape the group's early sound. The name of the band was in flux during this period. The group play under monikers Johnny and the Moondogs, as well as the Silver Beatles and the Silver Beats. An art school student and friend of Lennon's, Stuart Sutcliffe, was brought into the band to play bass. Sutcliffe and Lennon are often credited with coining the name the Beatles. The name that would become synonymous with modern music was a combination of Beatles and beat, hence the Beatles. In 1960 and the first half of 1961, the group performed at venues, including social clubs and dance halls around England and Scotland. But keeping a regular drummer was proving to be difficult. On short notice, they recruited Pete Best, whom they had seen play at Casbah Coffee Club. Lennon, Harrison, McCartney, Sutcliffe and Best left England in August 1960, playing regular gigs at the Indra Club. The larger Kaiser Keller and the Top 10 Club in Hamburg forged them as a group. It was at a performance at hometown venue the Cavern Club, where Brian Epstein first saw the group play. He returned to take in the show a few more times, and on December 10, 1961, Epstein approached the band about managing them, and a 5-year contract was signed in January 1962. That year would prove to be momentous for the Beatles. On April 10, Sutcliffe died of a brain hemorrhage. June 6 marked the first time the group would record at EMI Studios located at 3 Abbey Road, St. John's Wood, London, produced by George Martin, who would go on to be extensively involved in their first album. They recorded for songs Love Me Do, Besa Me Mucho, Ask Me Why and P.S. I Love You. Martin was impressed with the group, but believed Best was not up to the job as drummer. Epstein fired Best on August 16 and replaced him with 21-year-old Ringo Starr, who had been playing with bands in the area. Starr made his debut with the Beatles 2 days later. The band's first UK single, Please Please Me, was recorded in November and released in January 1963. It topped the UK charts and began a streak that would see 11 of their 12 studio albums through 1970 reach #1 in the UK. It would be Epstein who would eventually travel to the United States and secure a booking for the band on The Ed Sullivan Show. The Beatles made their first appearance on the US variety show in February 1964, an event that was witnessed by a reported audience of over 70 million people. In early 1964, after equally tumultuous appearances on American television, the same phenomenon erupted in the United States and provoked a so-called British invasion of Beatles imitators from the United Kingdom. By the summer of 1964, the Beatles appeared in A Hard Day's Night, a movie that dramatized the phenomenon of Beatlemania. The band's effect was evident around the world, as countless young people emulated the band members' characteristic long hair, flip humor, and whimsical displays of devil-may-care abandon. In October 26, 1965, each of the Beatles was made a member of Order of the British Empire (MB), having been recommended for the honor by British Prime Minister Harold Wilson, despite a brief storm of protest by some previous recipients, mainly military veterans, against what they perceived as a lowering of the dignity of the Royal Order. Between 1965 and 1967, the music of the Beatles rapidly changed and evolved, becoming ever more subtle, sophisticated, and varied. Their repertoire in these years ranged from the chamber pop ballad Yesterday and the enigmatic folk tune Norwegian Wood both in 1965 to the hallucinatory hard rock song Tomorrow Never Knows 1966. It also included the carnivalesque soundscape of Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite 1967, which featured stream of consciousness lyrics. by Lennon and a typically imaginative arrangement by George Martin. In 1966, the Beatles retired from public performing to concentrate on exploiting the full resources of the recording studio. Their 8th UK album caused a seismic shift in popular music, recorded in over 400 hours during a 129-day period. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band helped define the 1967 Summer of Love, and was instantly recognized as a major leap forward for modern music. Various members of the band in these years admittedly flirted with which was then a common recreational party enhancer, a mind-expanding drug such as LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide. It was their introduction to LSD that would have the most significant effect on their career. It not only caused a major shift in the sound of their music, but it also caused a cosmic shift in public opinion of the band and their public personas. Tangerine Trees and Marmalade Skies are to be found in the lyrics of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, one of the Beatles' greatest hits. Some have claimed that the first letters of Lucy, Sky and Diamonds supposedly refer to LSD, the famous hallucinogen that the Fab Four experienced. The Beatles' use of LSD decreased after the 1967 Summer of Love, and the band publicly denounced the drug on August 26, instead pledging their belief in Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's system of transcendental meditation. On August 26, 1968, the Beatles launched their own record label, Apple Records, with 4 singles. Apple I was the Beatles' Hey Jude. Apple II was Mary Hopkins' Those Were the Days, produced by McCartney. Apple III was Jackie Lomax's Sour Milk Sea, written and produced by Harrison. Apple IV was Thingamabob by the Black Dyke Mills Band, a group composed of Lennon and McCartney. The band continued to enjoy widespread popularity. The following year, Abbey Road went on to become one of the band's best-loved and biggest-selling albums. Meanwhile, personal disagreements magnified by the stress of symbolizing the dreams of a generation had begun to tear the band apart. Their breakup is attributed to numerous factors, including the strain of the Beatlemania phenomenon, the 1967 death of manager Brian Epstein, bandmates' resentment of McCartney's perceived domineering, Lennon's heroin use and his relationship with Yoko Ono, among others. In the spring of 1970, the Beatles formally disbanded. In the years that followed, all 4 members went on to produce solo albums of variable quality and popularity. Lennon released a corrosive set of songs with his new wife, Yoko Ono. On the evening of December 8, 1980, Lennon was murdered by a demented fan outside the Dakota, an apartment building in New York City. McCartney went on to form a band, Wings, that turned out a fair number of commercially successful recordings in the 1970s. In 1997, McCartney was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II for services to music. After the breakup of the Beatles, Harrison pursued a solo career. He immediately assembled a studio band consisting of ex-Beatles star, guitar legend Eric Clapton, keyboardist Billy Preston, and others, to record all the songs that had never made it onto the Beatles' catalog. Harrison died from lung cancer in 2001 at the age of 58, 2 years after surviving a knife attack by an intruder at his home. After the Beatles broke up, Ringo Starr eventually emerged as a steady performer and sustained a very popular solo career, turning out a dozen chart-topping hit songs and 8 best-selling albums. The Beatles were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988, and Lennon 1994, McCartney 1999, Harrison 2004, and Starr 2015 were also inducted as individuals.